presentation, and hopefully everyone has read the papers. And we've had quite a few scrutiny meetings now and good discussions. So my impression is that people are pretty familiar with the subject matters that we're talking about. So my proposal is that we just go straight into questions to officers without needing further presentations. Is that all right with everybody?
Sure is.
Excuse me, Chair, just for the record, Laura Pringle and Victoria Santa Maria are at Housing and Community.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sorry.
Just ask if we're going to review the minutes from the last.
We are going to review the minutes of the last meeting as well. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you for pointing out. I've been asleep all afternoon, so I am still. If anyone's had a migraine, that's how I feel after post-migraine. I feel completely washed out. Fortunately, I didn't have a migraine though, which is always nice. So minutes. Any comments on the minutes of the last meeting? Councillor Timmis, I'm guessing that you might have one or two.
You're right. I just wish to follow up on one or two of the actions that were mentioned in the minutes, and I don't know whether it's possible I've missed the results of these actions, but one was about whether the Thames Water and Affinity Water have been invited to speak at the next.
I can give an update on that,
okay.
actually. We have spoken to the water companies and we are waiting confirmation they can attend the date. I chased this up today, so I'm hoping to get confirmation very soon, but they have been invited and we have given them an overview of what they want, what the committee would like to talk about.
Good, thank you. And the other thing was we were did ask for a costing of the green bin, extending the green bins collections for a little longer. They finished already, and I feel that quite a few people would feel that they still would like them to be collected for a bit longer. I mean, leaves are still on some of the trees.
Well, I had a conversation with the portfolio holder yesterday, and so when we get to because I'm pretty sure green bins will come up. So we'll address. If we don't address it in questions, we'll come back to it at the end, if that's okay. Is that
yes? And that's it. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments on the minutes? No. So we'll take those as read. I'll sign those in due course. I don't know what we do for apologies for absence because we've got people all over the place.
Yeah, we'll note apologies.
We'll sort that out.
Yeah.
Are there any other apologies that people are aware of? Other than the two that were mentioned.
Sorry, yeah, we've had apologies from Councillor Walker, who returns from annual holiday today.
Yeah,
so.
okay, fair enough. See others? Any declarations of interest this evening? No. Is there public participation this evening that we're aware of, and no press? Okay, so we're just recording as far as we're aware. As far as, yeah, good. I'm not aware of any call-ins because today is really about the budget proposals. That's all that's on the agenda apart from the work programme at the end. So we'll go straight into questions. We do have the papers in the agenda in order in a particular order, but I think I'm just going to open it up to questions wherever that people have had from reading the proposed budgets. Any questions or comments on the proposals? Councillor Burney.
Thank you, Chair. There's an item in the budget for play area investment income of 387k. What's the source of this income?
Can anybody answer what the source of the income? Can you give a page reference, please?
Well, I've got it as 27, but I think I was looking at the public thing, and it's wrongly numbered according to this, so I can't give you the page reference.
I locked myself out of my.
You know what appendix is?
Oh, I've got it here. Play area investment income section point 26. Page 27.
Oh, well, that's where I have it.
Or line 26.
Line 26.
Thank you.
Line 26
Oh,
in the
line
draft.
26 on the general budget, you mean?
Draft capital programme by OSC.
Right.
Appendix FII.
FI, well, yeah, right. Thank you.
Okay, yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think that item refers to the capital allocation for play improvement projects.
Sorry, I missed that.
That line that you just mentioned refers to a proposal as part of a capital allocation for play improvement projects. There are some play areas that needs an investment, and that has been allocated as part of the capital programme, as far as I'm aware. And we know that we need to invest in certain.
But how can that be? It says investment income.
You shouldn't say income, I
Shouldn't say
apologise.
income.
It's just play area investment. So it's those that were in the capital programme for this year.
It's allocation from the
Yeah,
capital programme,
yeah.
so it should say allocation
Yeah,
or something like that,
yeah.
shouldn't say
Yes,
investment.
I apologise.
I mean, the only way it could be income is if you reversed it or, moved it on to
Yeah.
the following year.
Thank you. So it's an error, Councillor Burney. It shouldn't say income.
I see.
Councillor Whiteley.
Woodall Farm is one of those playgrounds that's due to be refurbished next year, and the officers told me that they've been very successful in obtaining grants to do so. And in fact, they've been so successful that, in fact, because our playground hasn't been, I've been a councillor there for 20 years, it's hardly ever been touched since I've been there. And so I suppose that's why it is as an income, but it's because it's been achieved by grants or funding bids.
Yes, so that will be funded through that.
Thank you. But external grants funding.
So I think part of it's still funding. So
Yes,
developments.
am I
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, Chair, so thank you if I can hear. Yes, I think it was certainly pre-election anyway, we looked at allocating some silver. There was a programme that Stefania's team at the time, she wasn't here at the time, put forward for player improvements. Sorry, I don't recall the actual list, but we have allocated money to a number of play areas across, I think it's mainly Hemel Hempstead actually, but I'm sure we can get those details.
I was just trying to make a point of clarification about where that money actually came from.
Every organisation needs a Jordan. It's just basically told me how to fix my computer, so we're all like Jordan. Okay, great. But either way, I think the importance is that money is allocated to improving playgrounds, which we all really want and support, so that's good. Councillor Gale, and then Councillor Deacon, and then Councillor Burney.
Thank you. Thank you very much. On page 17, 7.7, we talk about post-COVID income generating services, first of which is leisure income. I wonder if we might be able to break that down a little bit and have some details as to exactly what that is.
Yeah, it's actually a matter for the Housing and Community Committee, this, and I think my colleague Diane Southam's in that meeting too, so it comes under that remit. She'll answer the questions there, but let me try and help with this. A lot of this is the money, I'm looking at Claire as well, the money we get from the management fee from Everyone Active, who run certainly Hemel Hempstead Leisure Centre, and Chair, we're just in the process of concluding that for 24-25 as well. I think the point here was there was a bit of a dip in the amount of income we were getting as a result of the pandemic, but that's starting to build up again now.
And is it the finance committee that looks at the contract and what we get from that, or is it
Housing and Community?
Yeah. Housing communities, because it's a
leisure services, yeah.
Is that it? Is that's the only item under that heading?
Pretty much, yes.
Well, no, it's not. There's AstroTurf 530k.
That's an investment, isn't it? Was it?
Well, yes,
no, I think
it is the leisure centre.
there's lots of tables here, Chair. There is an allocation towards AstroTurf. I think it's Hemel School, but that's a capital allocation for capital works
and that again falls under housing, does it?
That would fall. Believe that would fall under Housing Community again. Yes.
Okay.
So you think that's Hemel School?
There's some land at the bottom of the playing pitches at Hemel School, which have dual use. Yes, but by Hemel Sports Centre.
Is it Magger?
There is also a threadbare AstroTurf, which is why I assumed it was the leisure centre one, which is at the
yes.
But that's the same one.
It's the same one. Yes.
That's the same one.
The pitches get let out from the leisure centre.
I think is the land owned by the school?
I think it is, and we have an arrangement with them. Yeah.
So, Mike, obviously this is a contractual thing, and presumably the contract says that we're liable for such replacements.
So, Chair, I think
But
it's.
this is the wrong, you're saying this is the wrong.
It's another committee, but just to be, hopefully to be helpful here, it's one of the, just going back to Councillor Burney's question in main session here, that there are a number of projects which are still, the details still to be arranged, and that's one of them really. So it's a provision there to address that particular issue. So I'm sure there'll be more details in.
Yeah, I know the school has been. I know the
yeah.
school has been asking for it to be upgraded for
Yeah.
years, so for a long time anyway. So hopefully it's good news if it stays in the budget, but it's not for this committee. Any other follow-ups?
Thank you.
Councillor Cowan. So Councillor Deacon.
This may be a question that the Finance Scrutiny Committee deal with, but just generically, when you get budgets for roofs and replacement items, do you get several sort of quotes? What is the process? Because, you know, layman's terms, you know, maybe I'm quite too nifty, but a cabin roof for 24 grand, that sounds quite a lot of money for a cabin roof. Am I?
This is the so-called Bennett's End.
Yeah, it's only because I've got a cabin and I certainly think that I can associate with. But do you normally get a few quotes, or is that?
As part of the tendering, we'd be responsible procurement would look at, depending on the level of spend, how many quotes and everything we'd need to fulfil our requirements.
So it's a very thorough process to get value for money.
Yes.
Chair, if I could just add, this is actually part of our procurement standing orders, so there is a defined procedure and there are thresholds really at which different procurement levels apply, basically. But it's exactly as Claire says.
I'm sure it would, but thank you.
Can we make a note to speak to Councillor Taylor on the development, Councillor's development, because it might be worth just having a short briefing on that. Can be done online.
Sorry,
On
speak to
procurement,
councillor.
on the procurement.
On procurement.
Nigel Taylor. Yeah, member development, thank you. Yeah, all right, it's the right way round, because I think that might be useful. Councillor Burney, thank you.
Thank you. While on that subject, could we please change the designation of that place? Because it's not Bennett's End at all. It's part of Leverstock Green. We look after our
All the perennial Bennett's End, Leverstock Green
children's
boundary. So is it in Leverstock Green? Is that what
It
you
is in Leverstock Green. It's on the wrong side of Bennett's End Road to be Bennett's End.
Okay.
And our children's area is fine. That one is in a parlous condition.
Okay. I will look to
We'll take that one away,
take
Chair.
that one away and consider it. Thank you.
And that
Right.
wasn't what I was going to ask, Chair. I was just.
Well, the floor is yours.
Okay, there's a few things that I've spotted in the thing that need some explanation. Broadwater Road, I think it is, there's £93,000 for resurfacing it. Is there a reason why this isn't being done by the county council? Oh,
It's our road, Chair. This
it's
will
private
be.
road, is
I
it?
believe, Claire, this is, sorry, through Chair, 3 years. This is in Berkhamsted, isn't it? It's the road off St John's, Lower Kings Road that leads up to tennis courts and the play area by the canal. But we own the road.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's just what I wanted to ask. Then the other thing that I wanted to know, I mean, it sounds a bit kinky to me, but could you explain what multifunctional devices are, £90,000?
They are printers, scanners, photocopiers, all in one.
I'm relieved to hear that they're as innocuous as that. Thank you very much. In the removal of items at an earlier place, I think it was on page 24, there is a credit of £100,000 for the Maylands shuttle analysis. I was wondering, how was this supposed to be funded? By whom, in other words, and why it has been removed as a saving?
So that was last year's budget, was approved as a one-off for a project to reserve funded. That therefore has got to come back out of the budget because that was for 1 year only, that funding. So that minus amount is us taking that budget back out of the expenditure.
Compared to last year's budget.
So it isn't just slippage, it's been axed.
No, it's not been axed, so it's there. We don't need to withdraw them reserves. We only ever needed to take one lot of the 100,000 or 100, I can't remember how much it is,
And
Is it an accounting thing to show
Yeah.
a difference between
Yeah.
last year's budget and this
Yeah.
budget, this
Yeah.
year's budget, rather
So
than it
if the
being?
project hasn't been completed, then reserves will still sit there and
Right.
can be carried forward. But yeah, we aren't drawing down any more from them reserves. It's only ever going to happen the once.
It was a reserve that was
Reserve-
funded, but
reserve funding,
thank you, that answers my question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions on the budget lines? Okay, if there aren't, I do want to come back to green bins. Was there something specific, Councillor Deakin, you want to say, or is it just reflecting that I said we'd come back to green bins?
Yeah, no, I'll just keep a lot for you.
So I believe there is a proposal because Councillor Tim has asked about whether something that we talked about before about could we have it costed, about how much it would cost to extend the service into the winter. I believe in the paperwork there is a proposal to increase the annual charge by £5, and but within that I believe I'm going to look to the portfolio holder, but equally the officers, that there is a potential to, whilst the costs don't allow for an increase in service overall, there is a possibility to extend the service by reducing the number of collections, say in November. I hope I've understood it. This is how it's explained to me. Is that?
Can I say?
So I'll go to the portfolio holder first because he's the one that told me.
Just, you know, we looked into, we got graphs of how much tonnage is collected each week during the year. So you got some idea about when there's real demand for the green bins, and obviously it drops off at the end of November, and there's and then it climbs quite rapidly at Easter time when people get out into their gardens again. And you know, there were some concerns about whether we needed a sort of winter shutdown, whether the equipment will be mothballed and so on. But we are investigating moving one of the collections, the 2 weekly collections, to move one of those from November into December or possibly even January. So that would spread it out a bit more. So that's still under review. John will be able to give an update on that possibly as well.
Yeah.
No, just so Mr. Mutialu.
This was a side discussion, and what I wouldn't want to do is misrepresent what your analysis has been of that. So what's your response to that in terms of previous discussions that we've had in the committee about generally extending the service? Because as Councillor Timmis says, leaves do fall, and leaves are a problem for longer than maybe the end of November for some people. And then plus that linking that to the charge, if that makes sense. Is that?
Okay, so regarding the extension of services, two parts of it. First part is, like Councillor Drummond had explained, that we are exploring at reallocating 2 weeks of the current schedule to cover another part of the year. So we will deliver the same number of weeks service, but we will carry out 2 weeks, the 2 week cycle, because obviously you have week 1 and week 2 over a different period of time. So we're just investigating that operationally, because what we have to do when we stop the service is we release the extra agency staff that would help cover, and they often go and work in other industries. So we're just trying to work through that process of how can we actually cover the service if we were able to do that. So
At no significant extra cost to
Yeah,
the council,
no
because of all of the things we discussed in next door's room, and the fact that we only want to increase it by £5.
No, so this is just if we were to move 2 weeks, one collection to another part of the service.
But I mean, if we're increasing it by £5 next year, that's like the standard that we were going to do. What you're proposing wouldn't mess up with that, the finances for that, in terms of the affordability of the service and also getting a reasonable return.
Yes, is that in the budget? We're just looking.
Apparently it is in the budget. Let John finish, and then I'll bring in Councillor Anderson.
We're just looking to see operationally if we can actually do that.
It's physically possible.
Because we need the extra staff to cover, because we have staff when we stop the greenway service. If you were requiring an additional add-on service, so again, it's a 2 week cycle, you have week 1, week 2. Currently it's not within the budget to do that, and it's roughly around £30,000.
Okay, how much does that work out per bin?
I couldn't tell you, but I could find that out for you.
If you someone could just very briefly crunch the numbers just to give us an idea, because we're proposing, I say we, the council is proposing to put up £5. Councillor Anderson.
I wasn't aware that we'd had a discussion in any sort of detail on the subject at all. I must have missed a meeting because I knew members had said, well, it's a bit frustrating it ends too early in November before leaves are finished coming down. I didn't realise people had gone into mechanisms or any other considerations, so I must have missed a meeting, but
no, you didn't miss a meeting. What's happened is that the portfolio holder and the officers have listened to the previous discussion and have gone away and had a thought.
I never got a satisfactory answer to a question I kept asking 3 years ago, and that was why wasn't the collection extended into December, particularly with oak leaves in mind, because they're the last ones to come down, and the collection not resumed till into March. At the moment it's resuming in February, and there must be no tonnage in February because the grass isn't growing in February. And I'm just wondering if that's a more practical, so unless there's a agency staff supply problem, which you might have already asked my question. I would have said, why not just extend? It's extended by 2 weeks. I know I compared the two calendars last year and this year. By accident or on purpose, it's actually 2 weeks later this year. I assumed that it was a sort of moving gradual feast, even though there'd been a change in leadership. But I think if it hasn't been considered, then I would suggest that it might be a good idea to consider extending it into sort of December and not resuming it until March, because you just don't need the service in February.
When does it start?
It starts.
Not that I'm dismissing what you said. I just want to know what the official.
It starts back up in March.
It does start in March, not. Okay.
I've got the graph here, and it does go up. There is a significant tonnage collected at the beginning of March. Then it's.
But the calendar I was looking at the other day, there was a collection in February.
So in 2022, it was started in February.
No, 2023. This year we're in.
This year it started in February.
Yeah.
But next year it's starting in March.
Well, that's an opportunity I was looking to explore.
So is that an opportunity? Is there a saving of starting in March next year compared to February this year?
I'd have to look at it because obviously I wasn't here at that point.
Absolutely.
So I think that's definitely, well, as they're considering it, can we ask them to put that into your consideration? So I think you're getting a steer from the group about what ideally we'd like to have it increased if we can, extended, not increased, extended. And what are the implications of that? And what about the starting? Have you got enough from the committee in the discussion to take that forward? It's typing, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the scheduling, but where's this £5 increase in fees coming from?
So is there? I believe it's because we had a group discussion yesterday, our party group, and it came up. So I was assuming somebody would mention it, but I may have just put my foot in my mouth. I don't know. But if it's in the budget, we should be discussing it.
Can somebody tell me where it is in the budget? Because I didn't see any.
In the fees and charges, right at the end.
Yeah, it's
just
with others that, or is it separately indicated?
Are you looking in the spade attachment or the generic one?
Well, that was just shown by.
Well, I think it's important for us to discuss it because the council needs to get a steer from this committee, and I wouldn't want this to go without the committee being aware of it.
Chair, can I say something about leaves? Move on to money.
Okay, Councillor England wants to talk to us about leaves. Off you go. While we search for the money.
Page 34. Page 34.
Thank you
We
very
shouldn't
much.
be picking them up at all.
Okay, leaves. Councillor England.
I just think, leaves fall off the trees. They don't immediately have to be swept up. I think it's a really good message that we could give to our residents from biodiversity and nature recovery point of view. But it's a good idea to leave the leaves if you can.
Good luck with that one.
Even the ones on the footpaths that get slippery and
Well, I don't think
little old ladies slip over.
I don't think they go in the green bin, do they?
The residents don't pick those up.
We're talking about green bin collection. So if we have more collections later in the year or over the off season, those can be used to take away the leaves. But in the meantime, those leaves perhaps can be left down for the animals.
They become much harder to get pick up once they've got wet and been left around for a long time. I have got two very, very large oak trees, and I can tell you that the amount of leaves that they produce, I mean, they blow into the house literally because there are so many, and so
I'm not suggesting
pick them up.
I'm not suggesting that we issue a decree that no one in decorum is allowed to pick up their leaves. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I think just some people, if they knew that there was a potential choice to be made there, might decide to do that.
Well, I think we can add that to our considerations, because if when you're looking at the planning, if the sort of the planning and it doesn't come out, or financially it's not viable or whatever, then we do have other messaging potentially about leaves. So I think it goes into the pot. Councillor Anderson on that point, and then Councillor Gale.
Councillor Ingham on that point, because with the price of compost rocketing,
Yeah, you're next.
and the quality you get of mixing compost with leaf mould, it is actually in residents' interest to actually go out and steal these leaves and use them for compost. We got that message across.
Who are you stealing them from? The trees?
I agree.
Can you steal leaves?
So I think
I digest slightly, Chair, sorry.
I don't consider that a digression. For the last two comments, I think that links into talking with your colleagues in communications as well, because whatever we decide and whatever this comes out, the council should have some brief communications on what citizens should be doing, and what our limits of what we can do. If that makes sense. Is that right? Councillor Gale.
Well, Councillor Anderson made more or less the point that I was going to make, only he made it better than I would have done.
Damn.
And he wasn't even more animated. I think out of the two of you were more animated, but I still let Councillor Anderson go first.
If we put the information out there, I think we can expect some of our residents to twig.
Oh.
I didn't say you can talk about leaves, but you can't make any jokes, and I didn't say that, so I apologise to everybody.
Oh.
Right.
Sorry, Chair, I apologise.
We're not bowing down to you yet.
Councillor Burney, bring us back to
Yes, I'm sorry.
sensibility.
The leaves business. There are a couple of items that I missed raising, if I may do. It's really for information as much as anything. On page 30, line 29, there's reference to 104K on Durrance Lakes Education Centre. Presumably this was something that was started by the previous administration. I may be wrong on that, but I just wonder if 104K in the budget is quite substantial, and I just wondered if it's justified in view of the financial pressures that the council is under at the moment.
Chair, thank you. Yeah, this is a capital item again, so members are clear on this. It's a capital project. It is a project we've been looking at for some while now, actually. What it relates to is actually the area of open land on London Road. It's sometimes referred to, I think, Councillor Anderson, as the absolute triangle is the right way to describe, by the lakes and so on, which are off London Road. And it's about improving that area to improve public access through the area. Now, it's complicated because we have a number of leases through there for the anglers and the scouts and so on, and ensuring the anglers have enough quiet, basically, to carry out their fishing and so on. And there are some ecological concerns. So there's a bit of study work been going on at the moment just to understand how we can do this sensitively, but we would like to keep that in the budget.
As a corollary to that.
Sorry, to bang on, it's the educational centre they're spending this money on. So that's why I'm asking, is it justified?
Yeah, I think I will ask Claire after the meeting if we can just change the title. Actually, I don't think we should say educational centre. There was a very old idea about some form of building. Again, I'm looking at Councillor Anderson because I'm sure we discussed it before.
I spent the last 12 months of my tenure in councillor.
Wilkie.
Thank you.
Get there.
A senior man here, role, frantically trying to get SIL funding released for that, and a much bigger project than just that. Because we need to bear in mind that Durrance Lakes is going to become a key part of this council strategy for providing recreational space for the growth of the future. And it's a major project. We're talking, if you don't know the site that well, You just drive past, it looks like there's just a river and nothing there, but actually behind the river, you've got a massive area.
I know the area.
Yeah, I'm not just yourself. It's a golden opportunity to come up with a really nice facility for our residents, but it's going to take a lot of planning and a lot of funding.
And it just seems to be at the wrong time.
And I think we will need it if we're going to have this development.
So where does that capital funding come from?
It's just part of our capital allocation, actually. Yeah. In fact, Councillor Anderson might smile at this. We did, I think, 15 or so years ago, get a big grant from the government at the time, really, around growth area funding, and we don't call it that anymore, do we, Claire? But it's a residual amount we had from a government grant at that time for various things, and that was
Would it qualify as a SANG? And apologise for my ignorance or something that would complement SANGs and
Samba.
Oh, is it Samba?
Suitable alternative natural blue space.
Oh, okay. Blue space because the water. Right, great.
Yeah, it may do, Chair. There are quite close rules on what counts as a SANG or not.
That's what I thought.
The point is, and I agree with what Councillor Anderson's saying, is it's the main thing is it's a facility for both current residents and new residents as well. Yeah.
And allowing for this huge growth that we need.
For the scale, it's obviously very early doors, but the idea ultimately is to have a bridge over the river.
The area for most of my life.
Yeah.
I think that's welcome. That could be an amazing opportunity for the area.
But I think still a good point made, given
It's
how.
not that I'm against it.
No, it's is it a good investment?
Is it the time? It's a prime candidate for moving on to a future year.
Chair, I think anybody can take a view on this. If anything, it's late. Yes. It's late. It's just that we found the technical issues around this. I mean, sorry, just to add to the list, there were hydrology issues with the ridge as well, which have required further study as well. But it's this. We hopefully Councillor Whitelow might be saying. So we're speaking to residents at the moment. I was actually at Woodall Farm with Councillor Whitelow and Councillor Mrs Williams on Monday, really, and the big question we will get from residents is about we don't get the infrastructure before the development comes. Here is actually the opportunity to put something in before we get new homes built as well. Okay. So we have the ability to do so.
So disgruntled residents and a bridge over troubled water.
Oh, stop it. But on this, so in answer to
investment, you should look at Mike Ward. Carry on.
So in answer to Councillor Burney's question, I think the advice we're having from officers is that it's something that we do need to get crack on and do it. In the importance of everything else, it is. I'm not seeing any other hands up or other concerns about this at the moment. But thank you for your point, Councillor Burney. Next point.
Okay, the final one I have. There's a figure on page 31, line 38 on verge hardening. And the normal, in the succeeding years after this year, it's 250k a shot. But this year, it's £705,000. And I'm wondering why it's been front loaded, and in particular where it is to be spent. I should have thought that the Lib Dem administration would be against this anyway, encouraging more car parking, but that's by the way. Could somebody explain why it's
from the last year?
Slippage from the previous years.
We've had it on hold while we investigate the best approach to take with that verge hardening and what is the best approach to take for residents. And
so where are we with that? Thank you, sir.
I can answer, Chair. So we are engaging with the team and experts to get a strategic approach on verge hardening, because my thinking is that we need to really be very clear with residents and with everybody how we're investing that money and how we're choosing priorities. We've got a long list of requests that a lot of the time came in. Yeah, a lot of the time came in also as emails, or there is no at the moment. All of those requests have been pulled into a big spreadsheet, which is effectively all the kind of areas of interest. And what we're keen to do is to then develop a strategic approach on that can then justify the investment in specific areas and the reasons why.
But if you're still doing that work, how come you're allocating 705,000 this year?
In parallel to that, and I just wanted to emphasize the environmental angle of that as well, because we're talking about birch hardening, but in parallel to that, we're also exploring solutions to make how we can time the remaining environmental friendly, because that's happening at the moment. What we're doing. Oh, well, that's so my assistant. And I appreciate why project was nodding.
I wanted to get involved in it. What I wanted to say was I'm thankful for doing it. A lot of these projects an area so there's benefits that go with it. So I just wanted I'm just 12, 18 months but time again, it's when I find out what else was so but if it's got something in doing a review, that's fantastic.
Whatever, then we need to reallocate that. There's clearly an interest in this committee sooner rather than later, where this budget is. Yeah, so, but yeah, so. Yeah. Excellent, yes. I thought Lola had abandoned us, but she's gone to where she can get power. So I'm coming out of the calendar year, so.
Well, let's ask, like,
Yes, because we're now video minutes, so Lola's not typing, she will take the minutes from, just take it from our Glorious Voices. Councillor Timmins, thanks.
Again, used to receive where everyone was on the verge of There's attempts, and certainly in my case, in marketing, there's been an issue. You would go on the list, and it take you time, up to years, you can see yourself moving up the list of things coming up. We market in particular in the villages, and I appreciate what you said about trying to get people out of their cars, but in the villages we have nothing. We don't have enough public transport, so everybody has a car. Not only do they have a car, but they also have their work vans, and most of the houses that have been built, and even though some of the council houses that were built earlier, garages are nowhere near the houses anyway, and nobody uses them, so everybody is parking on the verges. So whilst it would be lovely to have fewer cars, fewer vans, it really isn't realistic at the moment, because everybody goes to work and needs a car to get up wherever they want to go. And we're also closing down all our little local businesses in the villages in order to build more houses. So it's it means that we're going to have more people with more cars, unfortunately.
I think overall, the officers have got a really good steer from that discussion, that there's support for that capital budget. And we're really looking forward to that report early next year. And how you're then going to keep councils informed, because like Councillor Anderson, I've got at least it's very clear in my mind that we've all got places in our, sorry? We've all got them, yes. Yes. Absolutely. I'm happy about the pause, very happy we've got capital expenditure allocated to this programme, and looking forward to that. Yeah. So, is it?
Well, I think the report on
Well, yeah. Okay, well, we're not going to get that if we're going to be interested. Anyway, thank you.
One, we can have that report that explains the strategic approach and explains the list of areas. And then and call them and use the steer on. Is the list that is the strategic approach. So I think
money's not going to be allocated to projects until we've gone through this process. So I'm imagining if we get to the stage where we don't like the process or look at all, we don't want it, that money gets allocated somewhere else, which is not good, but that's going down the line. Okay. So I'm just looking at, I've just pulled up the Durrance Hill rates. Councillor England, no jokes, please.
No jokes.
Two times jokes. Okay.
So on verge hardening, is a tool. It's a balancing item. In 2018, this is the third time in such a place that I was able to get 25% of the budgets. Even I was able to do that with ideas for fresh thinking on projects that on the list. I'm not saying all my projects were great, some of them got knocked back. Still able to was able to put forward so many projects that I got really unfair part of it. So I think there's something to be said about the hiatus that we had. Probably means that there are some projects out there now which have got a good case for them. Also, since 2018, which was 5 years ago, we now have much more incidents of flooding, i.e. rain. That's how fast I'd say that climate change is moving. For a place that even those of us that do anything in the council a few years can identify. And HCC, which is the lead level authority, struggling to officers struggling with their part to deal with this problem. So that's a new factor. With verge hardening and with parking, I think we need a rational conversation residents. What happens if you make on-street? You get more cars, more people decide, oh, there's space for me to have another car now. And what happens is you reach the equilibrium we're at, reach it in a more congested situation. So there's a Facebook group called Hempstead Remembered, which some of you might have experienced, full of fantastic pictures on Hempstead in the 1950s. And almost nobody really stops to think too often about how few cars there are in those pictures. We do more verge hardening without any rational conversation, then all we're doing is making those pictures look even worse. In some places, there is measurable particle stress on the streets. And in some of the areas where I'm active, I've done some surveying, and I've identified that could be between 1.7, maybe as high as, in some cases, 1.4 bar spaces per house. So those areas, if we can work on that picture, because it is quite a labour-intensive picture to build up, then we can do a more rational approach to verge hardening. We can provide more verge hardening closer to areas where it's really needed. And of course, we need to think about local cycling, cycling, walking infrastructure plan. We're going to look at in March, and there is a process coming down the track. That's the closest I get to it. And I didn't even say it. But, and there's also bus improvement. The message is out there now. I think it's out there. It's going to carry on to improve buses so that people can have confidence both in cycling and walking, getting on the bus, so they've got options. That may mean that we take some pressure off parking stress in a different way. But verge hardening can be used. I think it has to be stepped up to another level, where we actually look at, before you get verge hardening, some residents are asking for it. So we've looked at what's the effect on water flooding, looked at what is the effect on parking stress, making really evidence-based decision, but only where it's really the answer.
That's what I'm hoping that this report's going to do, and I think the examples that we've been given are not to do with parking stress, but it's to do with a road that you all know, Beechfield Road in Boxmoor, just to throw that up for some examples where it's just a mess, people are just parking on the verges.
Yeah.
And so that you're not going to add cars there because the cars are already there. So thank you, but it is, so I believe, particularly this administration, the climate change, and Fanny already mentioned that the surface, got that grasscrete stuff, I guess, you can just like firm up grass but still have the grass. But let's not preempt your report, evidence-based, like in this committee, so we'll look forward to seeing that early next year. Any other comments on verge hardening? Councillor Patterson.
Period now, maximum. There is any research. The buses are being used more frequently. Uses of that. One of the good things is government to the
Thank you.
Budget item.
No, but yeah, I think the point has been made about looking at this thing and looking at this as a whole. Yeah.
Councillor Patterson, I can hardly hear you over here, and I'm sure the land department told you.
Just so you know, the 4 green lights in the ceiling are your microphones.
Oh.
So
You are being watched.
if you project, if possible, just to make sure none of your points are missed by the public watching.
Maybe that's something else we should put in member development then, sort of,
I mean, it will pick
skills.
up general voice. You don't need to shout.
Use your outside voice.
But yeah, please don't use low.
I didn't wish to denigrate what was being said about buses. I do think it's an important matter, and I think it's another one that we should be putting on our future
The work
program. Because there are some developments going on in the county at the moment, like these hailer bus things, and CAD runs one of those as well. And I'm just wondering whether they could be coordinated to the advantage of our residents. Yes, I agree with you. We need better buses.
We're going to have, I mean, we've got the cycling and walking plan, but I guess that the bus links to that, and the local plan as well, I guess, to a certain extent, but certainly any new developments like Hemel Garden communities and that speculative one on Leighton Buzzard Road that we had the briefing on, the Development Management Committee had the briefing on. There was talk about that, although it is limited funding for 5 years, but hopefully it'll kick off something. And LA 3. Thank you. You knew the one I was talking about. There's buses there as well, although there's problems with that. But yes, so I'm gabbling now a little bit, but I don't know whether we need a separate thing on buses on this committee. Does anybody else think we do? The work programme? Or do we just need to make sure that we consider it with the other things? We should have a separate thing on buses. Is this the appropriate committee for that? Thank you.
I wouldn't understand why it's more. To do it. Invest in another place.
Yeah.
We can stick to lobby that other place, but we're all very.
So we've slipped into work programme, but it's an important discussion. I just want to close this up about whether or not it should be on the work programme. So thank you for the theme. Councillor Whitelow.
It should be on the work programme. I think it's very useful. So that we can start working together on the transport systems that we so clearly need. And talking to ourselves as a council, we're talking inwards, and we really need to see the county councillors, I'm sure you're aware, about things like hearts and other services. All sorts of stuff going on right now. We're not talking just every tier of local government about that together. We're not going to make a coherent strategy and achieve the aims of reducing crime. I think the evolution of that thinking about not using more cars so much will take many years. Also, I love it when you talk about electric scooters and what have you, Adrian, and I can just think, see all the little old ladies going around there on their electric scooters, it's not, it's a bit of a pipe dream issue, and we should be aiming at the whole spectrum of the population, not just the younger ones that can hop on their bike or can hop on a scooter and do those kind of things.
Right, thank you very much. Adrian, Councillor English, you had your hand up. Just on, could we not have side conversations, please? Could you just respond in terms of what value this committee can add to the discussions and/or what else is going on with the bus discussions?
Yeah.
Because it's really about whether or not we don't duplicate things. There's clearly an interest in this committee. How should this committee best handle it? What's going on?
So I think that when we have the climate emergency report that comes, I think in February, I think it's going to be in February. It would have been January, but January this meeting's been cancelled. Then buses will be, I dare say, more than a paragraph. So that might be a good economical vehicle for, I've done it again, for talking about that. We have the ability to participate in the interlink conversation, which we do, and I've bunged a few questions in there to be asked on my behalf. And also, obviously, we have whatever working is going on with bus service improvement plan, which is very small, very small amounts of projects at the moment. But once they realise what a fantastic opportunity there is to do all these schemes in Hammersmith, then hear from them a bit more. As to whether it's worth having a HCC person to come buses, I think not yet. I think it might well be an idea for bring on the work plan and see what negotiations we can.
There's a lot of work now on transport in different areas in California, locations, and that's why I know as well. There's clearly going to be some work with the plan coming up on transport solutions, but there's a piece of work that the Hull Garden community is working on strategy and vision, which is a bit longer term, but it does apply to the whole of the urban area of Hemel Hempstead as much as it does to the expansion area as well. So perhaps if officers can take this away and perhaps as a combined thing, once that work's moved on a bit really, and then that might well combine well with somebody from the county council coming.
Does that sound reasonable
picture
for officers to go away and think about how best to keep us informed with that? So we'll put it in pencil in the work plan. That's right, but not a date yet, so that we know what we're doing with that. I'm very aware that we're talking about Hemel a lot when we talk about buses, and it's a really good point about villages, and council might know about interlink because of other towns. So we just want to be aware that Decorum is not just Hemel Hempstead, although a lot of those bigger projects that help with this are currently planned for Hemel.
Should then just mention ask to the call and anybody who missed that.
Thank you very much. So we slipped into work plan there. Any other comments on the projects before we?
On the planning theme, I'm assuming that the percentage on the will really increase, is that right? Because that's considerable, isn't it?
Tell me where you are on the report. So there's one fees and charges.
So given that there's obviously more, I also want to know whether you take into account the cost of appeals of the enforcement. Because is that something that you
yes, thank you. Yes, the planning fees have actually gone up today. They would be 6. These are national planning fees, but they've gone up throughout England.
So it's a national thing, it's not just as.
That's correct, they're set nationally. And they've gone up by mostly 25%, though major development's gone up by 35%.
Quite a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
So yes, the other kind of good news is that rather than wait 6 or 7 years for the next increase, come April 2025, they will increase in line with inflation. And also they've removed the free go process. So now if applicants were treating the first application almost as a free pre-application advice and then submitting a second application for free.
Yes, exactly. Free.
So that's now been removed. And the second application will incur a fee.
I can think of somebody that's going to affect badly, Chair, and so does Philip.
So in terms of the appeals, there is no process for charging for appeals.
No, but you have to pay for appeals, don't you? Well, you may have to.
Well, there's no.
So there's no influence on the budget, because if you have a number of appeals, I think there are more appeals coming up at the moment, aren't there? I'm aware in my area, quite a few appeals going on.
So in terms of planning,
costs have been awarded against us.
Yeah, so there's there's a few points here. So in terms of cost to the council, this is principally borne within budget through officer resource and time spent by officers in defending appeals. There may be a very, very small percentage of appeals where we would need external support, such as a barrister for a public inquiry or a landscape specialist. Yeah, so but I would certainly to touch on your initial point. We never think that, oh, we're not going to refuse or we're not going to serve an enforcement notice because it will be too expensive to defend. Our reasoning is it harmful, and is it expedient and proportionate to take that action, and then we can deal with the resourcing.
It's not part of the budget as such. It's just.
Yes, but it's yeah. It's
I have another question, not totally related to budget, but it is about a payment that's made that I've become aware of recently with a resident who's had a planning application in, which has taken an awful long time to be determined. But one of the reasons it's taken a long time is because there's been a requirement by Natural England and National Trust, who apparently now make a decision themselves. So in other words, you're waiting for that decision and that have to be paid. There's an extra payment which goes to them for the mitigation of the effects on the Chiltern Beechwoods. Now, I'd like to know, there's a hold up while you wait for that decision to come through. Not even though the money's been paid, you still have to wait for them to decide on that. So that's one thing which holds up decisions, I think, even more than currently is happening. And then the other thing is, do we scrutinise how that money is spent? I mean, we're paying this money. This money is being paid to the Chiltern Beechwoods, but we don't know what they're doing with it, do we? It's just a rather general thing of mitigation. So I wonder how I mean, I can see how it's done if you're using it to create a sang, but I can't see how we know what that money is being used for, which is coming from our residents as part of their planning requirement. What is it going to be used for?
Yeah.
Do you know? Perhaps you do.
Well, so there's two questions there.
Would you mind, Councillor? If we just had it as a written reply,
yes,
just to save time, because it's 22, if that's okay. Yes. Because I do just want. Are there any other general comments on the budget before we very quickly go to fees and charges at the end? So I do want people to. Could the committee please just cast their eyes over the last few pages of the report, Appendix 3, just because I do want you to be aware of some of these proposals that fall within our remit, so that they don't come as a surprise. And if you do have any questions, so we mentioned green bins before, but there is a review of improving's the wrong word, of reviewing the length of the service across the year. The green bin has 2 asterisks saying pending final review, so I'm guessing that's still under discussion. There are proposals there, and we've talked about how successful that's been and the take up and all that sorts of things in previous ones. There's also other charges that fall within our remit. So is there anything that sort of any significant concerns that anybody wants to raise? Is one thing, and the other thing is I just wanted to make sure that the committee was aware of those, because those are the sort of things that might come in our post bags and things like that. Councillor Patterson, don't forget to raise your voice. Speak to the green.
Is it possible to consider raising the film charges rather more than now, as it's around about 5%?
Is film charges this committee? Just before we say, just check. Yeah, it is. Yes, just want to check. It doesn't,
It used to be.
Falls
Chair.
under
It used to be,
Wilkie.
yes.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It falls under
finance?
Aidan Wilkie and Carol.
Yeah,
Yes,
Kelly,
okay,
Chair.
okay.
Yeah.
But if that question can be passed on, it may well come up in other committees. Thank you.
There's probably something there about needing to remain competitive with others in Hertfordshire, but yeah, absolutely, yes, we'll take that one away. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, some of these sort of professional services that we offer, I'm sure that's like pest control and cesspool emptying and all those sorts of things, and commercial waste. The council, I'm assuming, never assume, but I'm expecting that the competitiveness has been looked at. But again, I'm never sure which falls into this committee.
Commercial waste has always been a problem with competing. Councillor Anderson knows more than me about it.
There are challenges there, but anything sort of from when you've read the report coming into this, any of those charges, if you haven't had a chance to look at them, and something does occur to you in the next couple of days, do if you can copy the whole of the committee, we can put your comments into the officers. But unless there's any significant concerns or that we need to have a discussion about and then an agreement in terms of our feedback to cabinet and officers when they go to make their final decision, we'll carry on. Councillor Patterson.
Has the council, I mean, talk about being historical now, has the council ever considered having its own skip hire, decorum skip hire? What I thought.
Commercial opportunity.
Yes.
We'll stick that in as something to be considered, and I'm sure Councillor Bromman will have a chat with his officers about that.
Not something I've heard of, really. Okay, well, there's a big move towards recycling better, and commercial waste. The new legislation that's just coming in now is mandating better recycling of commercial waste, which we're not doing at the moment. It's all because it has to be accounted for separately to the domestic waste, which we have mixed recyclables and residual waste and green waste and food waste all separate. Unfortunately, commercial waste isn't done that way at the moment, but we're trying to make the system more efficient to use those same separate collection streams. And moving to a skip, I mean, what kind of I could talk a bit about how the commercial companies actually.
There's a suggestion which may or may not be bonkers, and you're going to go away and have to think about it.
If it was in a skip, you'd have to work out what kind of waste it was to be able to put it down the appropriate stream.
Skip this discussion, thank you. Sorry, the waste on gets under.
Very quick one.
Yes.
It was a bit slow.
This legislation was promised 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And promised every 3 months for 5 years.
Yeah.
Is there any hope it's actually happening, or is this just an expectation?
Well, they changed the name of it. I think there was an embarrassing incident where one of the senior civil servants said that even though they've been working on this conformity legislation for about 5 years, that they hadn't actually allocated resources to it. So the current government had to quickly get something out, which was what the work they've done so far.
Yeah, anyway.
So this is what we've got, and it's called.
Anything about how we should send all of our waste through. Right. I will just say though, I'm a commercial customer of DBC, and I absolutely love the service, and the guys that collect it are absolutely brilliant. So, and I couldn't run my business without them. It's just a shame there isn't space in the old town for where I have my shops. So I have to take my rubbish to the line shop. But yes. But just a bit of so where you are doing it, and I do want to make, because there seems to be some misunderstanding. The council does collect commercial mixed recycling and.
For a fee?
Yes, for a fee, but it's very reasonable. All the discussion about how expensive it is compared to, it's not expensive compared to, and the commercial, of the alternative commercial operator used to keep missing my bins, and they used to spend literally half a day on the phone trying to get them to collect it. I don't have that with DBC.
The government issued legislation that required commercial recycling the same as domestic.
They might be a little bit distracted by other things.
What would open the key? Open the lock.
Right. Anyway, thank you, Councillor Anderson. I can't see any more hands up or concerns. Thank you very much. I think thanks certainly from me. I thought that presentation, the initial presentation, was excellent. Took us through all of the key issues. I left that room feeling as reasonably comfortable as we can in local government, that we're okay, at least for the next couple of years. And just thank you to all of the officers for all of your work behind the scenes. There's a lot of material here. Yeah, just thank you to all of you for your discussion. We've got a couple more things on the work programme. And before we do finish, is there anything else that anybody wanted to raise for the work programme? Because it is on today's agenda. But I think we've had quite a good discussion about that already.
Yeah, can I come back to your, Layla, on the 10th of January about the affordable housing SPD? I'm not sure if that one's quite ready yet, actually, but we'll confirm that.
Yeah, I think that's an ongoing interesting thing. So if it slips, it slips. But thank you for the update on that.
Am I right, the 10th of January getting cancelled?
I have no idea. Is the 10th of January getting cancelled?
That I'm aware of. If Affinity Water can't make that date, then we don't have anything else on the work programme. Finance has been cancelled for January.
Okay.
I don't know if people are getting confused with that one. Thank you as well.
Thames Water, yeah, Thames Water is the more important one.
Yeah, with both, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the. Am I right in saying that wastewater rather than clean water? I mean, clean water and chalk streams and everything, and the water table and Gabridge Park. Again, sorry, to talk about Hemel is important, but I think it's the waste that's the most important, particularly because of the links of planning and the overflowing sewers, which we hear a lot about from our residents. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.